The government has now announced a major crackdown on ticket reselling for profit, something which and other campaigners have been fighting for months.
Reselling tickets to live events for a profit is set to be banned by the government in a bid to restrict ticket touts and protect fans.
Research by the consumer rights group Which found that prices of resold tickets can be eye-wateringly high.
To understand what this means for fans, how quickly things might change, why the King's speech is so important, and what still needs to happen, I sat down with Adam Webb, campaign manager at FanFair Alliance, one of the groups that's been campaigning for these protections for years, and worked with us to make this happen. Adam, thanks for joining me. This is obviously a huge moment. We finally got what we've been hoping for. The government has now said it will stop ticket resale for profit. What does this victory mean for fans?
Right, it's a really, really big step.
Yeah.
The crucial part now is getting legislation underway. So I believe there's going to be a King's speech. No one quite knows when, but kind of March, April, even with the legislation going through, it's still going to probably take, I don't know, I think the estimates will be like, 12 months, 14 months for legislation to actually hit the statute books.
So we recently had the government's announcement. We've been hearing a lot about it, but has it truly been that bad for music and sports and event fans?
I think it's been awful, to be honest. I think part of the problem is that it's almost like people have become immune to it, really. But there's been no enforcement of these websites. There's only been a couple of arrests and prosecutions which were done through Trading Standards. But unfortunately, it didn't lead to further prosecutions because Trading Standards don't have the budget to go and arrest more people. The situation for fans has been pretty much getting a bit of a raw deal, to be honest, for far too long. And the longer that the government doesn't do something and doesn't introduce legislation, it will just continue going on. So, at the moment it's £150 million a year that fans are losing, just in music. But again, if we don't get into the King's speech, like I say, you're probably looking at another £500 million.
Do you think the problem's going to be solved with this, or do you think the real challenge is going to be enforcing the new rules that will come with the legislation?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think government doesn't have a silver bullet to make everything rosy in the garden. I think it's a really, really, really crucial step to changing this market. But I think the thing that we really want to see is kind of a market change. So it's a moving away from this kind of exploitative secondary ticketing to a market where it's fan to fan, where you can just resell a ticket for the price you paid and someone else can go to the gig.
So once legislation passes, what are the key things that need to be in place to make sure that ticketing is fair for fans long term?
There's a number of things. I think that obviously the cap itself has to be enforced. So we need proper enforcement. Again, that's something that's been kind of lacking in this area. I think the Competition and Markets Authority have struggled, if I'm being honest, to keep these websites under check. I think Trading Standards need more budget because they're an important aspect of enforcement as well. More liabilities, hopefully, on the actual websites themselves. I mean, incredibly, those websites don't have to kind of police the tickets that are listed, so they don't ask for any receipts. The other really, really important aspect of this, I think, is actually for the music industry itself to kind of step up. This kind of parasitical market's lopped itself on the side, and then everything kind of works around it. I think, obviously, if you can, put the artist and the promoter in control of the pricing, everything becomes a lot clearer, I think. I think the other thing is getting the likes of Google and other social media companies on board with this as well. These websites like Viagogo and StubHub, their one route to market is through search advertising. So they appear at the top of Google search. It's the only way that they find customers. It's quite old school. All these things could be stopped. Just need the loopholes to be closed. The problems of regulating this market are the websites are all offshore. These websites don't employ anyone in the UK. They don't have offices here. So that gives you some issues in terms of enforcement and regulation. And then B, they harbour the identity of their biggest suppliers and sellers. And again, a lot of them seem to be based overseas as well. I did some research on Viagogo listings in Scotland. And you're talking about, 80 to 90% of the sellers are all based overseas. And again, two of those sellers, I think one based in France and one in Slovakia, are responsible for like 40% of all the listings.
Because some resale platforms have argued that if fans can't resell for profit on regulated sites, then touts are going to go to social media, Meta, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok comments, and scammers are going to move over there and try and monetize on the situation on social media platforms.
Yeah, I mean, they're very self-serving arguments made by the likes of Viagogo and StubHub. I mean, one thing they do is they kind of deny the existence of sort of a capped resale market. So their kind of logic is it's either us, you might not like us, but it's either us or Facebook Marketplace. UK banks always issue warnings about social media fraud in particular around any large scale events, so Oasis, Taylor Swift, FA Cup finals. any large-scale demand where there's demand, there's social media fraud. You know, it's just a fact of life. My fear, I think, is that they start to move more into influencer marketing and things like that.
Because that will provide legitimacy. I mean, loads of young people kind of get their news from influencers.
So a market which is already difficult to navigate, which is already filled with misinformation because of search advertising, you then add another layer on that.
Platforms like TikTok, I've done it a few times. There have been big artists that have sold out. People are leaving comments like, oh, I accidentally bought 5 tickets, only need 2 of them, selling them on.
Yeah.
So obviously, sometimes it's going to be legit, but how do you know?
Buying anything from a stranger on a social media platform, not a very good idea in kind of in any scenario, I guess, but particularly in ticketing, I think.
Do you think there will be a safe, regulated secondary market that does get created?
Yeah, I mean, it's there already, thanks to Ticketmaster for doing this, but they've joined with the rest of the ticketing industry and they only allow resale at cost price now. So it's kind of like all of the big ticket sellers now offer that service. Most ticketing sites, the small print goes on for, weeks.
Yeah, no one's reading it.
And no one's reading it. But there's obviously key things in there in terms of, what a ticket is. It's a license. It's a license to attend an event. It's an intangible right to get into a gig with rules that are set by the promoter. But that now includes the right to resell the ticket. So actually, technically, I kind of think most ticket purchasers now are kind of getting something more. 15 years ago, you wouldn't have had the right to resell, whereas now you do have the right to resell, but at the price that you paid for it, not for some exorbitant sum to make money off of it.
Many articles, venues, fan groups, artists have got on board, they signed the petition. Do you think this is showing that there's now potentially a shift in power dynamic away from these sites? And do you think that this could potentially develop into a global movement?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it's been really fascinating to see things develop in North America in particular. I've given evidence in Washington and they're kind of taking a lot of interest and influence, I think, from what we're achieving in the UK. If we can demonstrate that this can work, then I think that will be hopefully quite inspirational to North America in particular.
So what do you want to see the government do to make sure that this recent announcement wasn't just symbolic, but actually will turn into proper action?
I think it's kind of thinking about how we want this market to operate, making sure there isn't the kind of loopholes of people being offshore. The internet's been around for quite a while. I think we need to kind of consider it in our legislation that it kind of needs to be future-proofed, just make the market function properly.
Don't forget to follow us for more.